Lines and angles in parallel and perpendicular lines. Parallel lines are two lines that do not intersect and are coplanar. So that word coplanar means they're on the same plane. An example of parallel lines on our diagram are right here. Line AF and BG. When we talk about skew lines, we're talking about two lines that do not intersect and are not coplanar. So these are lines that are not going to intersect, but they are not on the same plane. So if we have AB along that top plane and line DE along the bottom plane, they're never going to intersect, but they are on different planes. Perpendicular lines are two lines that intersect to form a right angle. So here we have line BC and line BG that intersect to form that right angle. And usually in a three-dimensional figure like this, if you see a right angle in one place, it's actually going to be a right angle at all of those intersections. Oblique lines are two lines that intersect but do not form a right angle. So if we use line IJ and line AF, they intersect, but because IJ is at an angle when it meets AF that is not 90 degrees, they are not perpendicular, and they're just called oblique. Lastly, coincident lines are two lines that intersect at all points. If we were to talk about the line that goes through JH and also the line that goes through CH, we actually end up highlighting the exact same line. So line CJ and line JH, that would actually be the exact same line. Now, parallel planes are two planes that do not intersect. So when we want to talk about those planes, in this diagram specifically, think about it like a room. The ceiling and the floor, if it's architecturally sound, should never intersect each other. If they extend forever, they're never going to find a point where they meet. So those are called parallel planes. Next, we want to talk about what happens when you have two lines that intersect with a third line. So a transversal is a line that intersects two or more coplanar lines at different points. So now we're talking about the same plane. We have these two black lines, and this green line intersects them at two different points. So we would call this green line the transversal. Next, we're going to talk about what happens with the special angles when we have a transversal intersecting at least two lines. First, we have a term called corresponding angles, and these are angles that occupy the same position. Now, in terms of talking about position, I want you to think about it this way. If you were to make a circle around each intersection, then it's a little easier to identify their position. Angle 1 is in the top left side of the circle. So here, angle 5 is in the top left side. So we would say that angle 1 and angle 5 are corresponding angles. Angle 2 is in the top right side. Angle 6 is in the top right side. So angle 2 and angle 6 are corresponding angles. 3, bottom right, 7, bottom right. So angle 3 and angle 7. 4 is in the bottom left, and 8 is in the bottom left. So angle 4 and angle 8 are corresponding angles. Next, let's talk about alternate exterior angles. These are two angles that lie outside the two lines on opposite sides of the transversal. So let's take this into account. First, let's draw our circles again, just to identify which ones we're talking about. And then here, we want to specifically talk about these two lines. So if we highlight those lines, and we only want to talk about the ones that are outside of them. So we're talking about the exterior angles. So we want the ones outside of those two red lines. So we don't care about these four angles right now. We're just focused on 1 and 2, 8 and 7, the ones outside. Now that word alternate means opposite sides of this transversal, so they need to be on opposite sides of that green line. In our ruling from before, you have to take one angle from each circle to make a pair. So 1 is on the left side, 7 is on the right side of the transversal. They're in opposite circles, and they're both outside of the red lines. So angle 1 and angle 7 are alternate exterior angles. Likewise, angle 2 and angle 8 are alternate exterior angles. So use the words in the term to help you define them. Exterior, the ones outside. And then alternate, they're on opposite sides of the transversal. And then lastly, remember, one angle from each circle to make a pair. Alternate interior angles are two angles that lie inside the two lines on opposite sides of the transversal. So it's very similar to the alternate exterior angles, except this time we're talking about alternate interior. So let's go ahead and start by drawing our two circles, and then we're going to highlight those two lines again. So remember, we're always highlighting the ones that are not the transversal. Then from here, we want to talk about the ones that are in the interior of our two lines. So not the ones that are outside, we just want to focus on the ones that are in between the two lines. And then we need to talk about that word alternate, which again means opposite sides of the transversal. So we want one angle from the left side and one angle from the right side. And lastly, remember, one angle from each circle. So angle 4 and angle 6 are alternate interior angles. And then we have angle 3 and angle 5. So remember to use your words again. Interior, inside the two lines. Alternate, opposite sides of the transversal. One angle from each circle to make a pair. Next we have consecutive interior angles. And these are angles, two angles that lie between the two lines on the same side of the transversal. So again, just out of habit, we'll start off with our two circles, and we are going to highlight the lines again because we want to just focus on the interior angles. So again, we'll eliminate the exterior ones and just focus on the ones interior. Now, we've taken care of that part. The consecutive part. Consecutive means in a row. And so remember, if we still have to take one angle from each circle, we've already done the ones on the opposite side of the transversal. Now we want to go with the ones on the same side of the transversal. So we have angle 4 and angle 5, and then the other pair is going to be angle 3 and angle 6. So we're still talking about interior, but this time we're using the word consecutive to tell us they're on the same side or in a row. In this next set, you want to look at the diagram with the angles and complete each statement with either corresponding alternate interior, alternate exterior, or consecutive interior angles based on the relationship of each pair of angles. Go ahead and try this and check back with me when you're finished. Hopefully you got the first one corresponding, second one alternate exterior, third one consecutive interior, fourth one alternate interior, fifth one corresponding, and the sixth one alternate interior. If you got any of these wrong, make sure you go back to the 4 different sets of notes we wrote regarding these relationships of angle pairs and make sure you double check and you're certain of what each one means.